Today I will be talking about the United States Naval officer John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones, formerly known as John Paul, was born July 6, 1747 in Kirkben, a Scotland village to an impoverished family. But he later goes on to be called the naval hero of the American Revolution through his skills. At a young age, John Paul would often hang around a port near where he lived and mimic naval warfare with his friends. At 12, John Paul was apprenticed to a Scottish merchant shipper by the name of John Younger until his business fails. John Paul was forced to find a new job as a slave trader at 17, which he later quits as he was disgusted by it and joins a new ship called the John. While on the John, the captain and chief mate die due to fever, and John Paul quickly takes command as the only qualified officer and returns it safely. In 1772, John Paul purchases his very own vessel but kills a ringleader of a group over a dispute, changes his name to John Paul Jones, and is forced to flee the West Indies to Virginia and avoid trial. When John Paul returns, however, the American Revolution has broke out and he commissions as a lieutenant in the newly formed Continental Navy, where he would be called the father of the American Navy. The year 1775 of December 7th, it's been a few months since the American Revolution has begun to take off. John Paul is assigned to a ship called Alfred where he sets himself apart from others with his battle against the Glasgow, a British ship, and gains naval warfare experience. From there on, John Paul would continue to have back-to-back victories in Nova Scotia. John Paul was then assigned to the ship called Ranger, where he sailed through the St. George's Channel and the Irish Sea and got even more victories. One of his fights in the Irish Sea was a hit and run on Whitehaven. Using two boats, John Paul and his crew quietly landed at shore and planned on capturing the two forts there at the same time. Without a single drop of blood, the raid party set fire to both forts and left successfully. France labeled him a hero. Although each of his victories were significant, his most notable victory was the Battle of Flamborough Head. On his ship Bahama Richard, named after Benjamin Franklin, John Paul had a 3.5-hour gunfight against British ships. His plan was to destroy British commerce until a wind blew them off course. On September 3, 1779, John Paul is engaged by the British ships the Serapis and the Countess of Scarborough. John Paul and his crew and his ship suffered heavy damage due to heavy firepower. When asked if he wanted to surrender by the British, John Paul famously replied, "I have not yet begun to fight." Afterwards, he and his crew took the Serapis, and the naval ship Pallas that was with John Paul took the Scarborough ship. Congress would go on to pass a vote of thanks for him since he sustained the honor of the American fleet, and later a song called "Here Comes John Paul Jones" would be made of him in Holland. I would rank John Paul Jones as D tier, maybe low C tier. While his actions had impact, he only kept the honor of the Continental Navy. His actions had zero effect on the early republic and a minuscule effect on the American Revolution. You could even say that he was more of a pirate through some of his actions, at least in Britain's eyes. My reasoning for calling John Paul Jones a pirate is because at St. Mary's Isle, John Paul Jones goes there so that he can kidnap the Earl of Selkirk in order to exchange them for the American hostages that were taken. But when they find out that the Earl isn't there, they decide not to leave empty-handed and instead rob the Earl. He was supposed to be the commander of the America, which was supposed to be the largest ship in the American Navy, but was denied and simply advised the Navy and the training. John Paul would later go on to die due to his health slowly deteriorating. On July 18, 1792, John Paul would die at age 45 from nephritis, jaundice, and pneumonia.